We love bringing you the real world mileage figures of the cars that we test. It's something what you guys asked for, and it's something that we are glad to deliver. But this time we are going a step further and we are doing a proper range test. We've got the ever popular Maruti Suzuki Swift, but in its CNG variant. Now we all know that CNG is the more economical way to travel, but the real question on everyone's mind is that how far can you actually go on a full tank of CNG in the real world? Well, we are curious too, and that is why we have decided to fill the Swift up to the brim with CNG and drive it until it runs dry to give you the real number how much it can actually go on a full tank. The first step to our CNG test is to get the Swift filled up. We're heading to the gas station now to make sure we fill it up right to the very top. Alright, the tank is officially full and we've set the air conditioning to a comfortable 23 degree with the blower speed between 1 to 2. Also what we have done is reset the trip meter to 0 so we can accurately track every kilometer that we cover on this CNG journey. Now it's important to note that along with a full tank of CNG, we also have about half a tank of petrol. And while we start with our city loop, we'll tell you what really powers the new Swift. Well, under the hood is the new Z series 1.2 liter petrol engine, which is now a 3-cylinder motor. And in its CNG, guys, this one puts out 69 bhp and 102 Nm of peak torque. Well, you can also switch it to petrol and the power is then bumped up to 11 bhp more, which is 80 bhp and 112 Newton meters of peak torque. However, with the CNG, you can have it only with a 5-speed manual gearbox. There is no AMT gears as such because all the Maruti cars that are powered with a CNG alternative can be had only with a 5-speed manual gearbox. Now the other thing to note here is the seamless transition between petrol and CNG. You have a button right here on the dashboard which helps you switch between petrol and CNG modes, and the switch is immediate, it's smooth, it's effortless. You don't really have to search for a button, and you also have a separate CNG fuel gauge on the instrument cluster in the MID screen. Also, one thing to note here is that you do get instantaneous fuel consumption for petrol, but for CNG there is no such instantaneous fuel consumption, and you don't even get a DTE like you get with the petrol version. While you might feel a slight dip in outright grunt in CNG mode compared to petrol, it's perfectly adequate for everyday urban commutes and even cruising on the open road. The 5-speed manual gearbox feels familiar and easy to use, making the driving experience quite pleasant. Okay viewers, so till now we have completed about 40 kilometers in the city, and the conditions right now has been a mix of stop and go and slight cruising speed of about 40 to 50 kilometers. Exactly ideal what we had expected for city loop conditions. And secondly, how much have we lost? So we have consumed about 2 bars on the fuel gauge, and we still have about 7 to 8 points left on the fuel gauge till it runs out of gas. Now let's talk about the features that we get with the Swift CNG variant. So unlike the Tata cars that also offer CNG alternative with the top spec variant, Maruti CNG Swift can only be had in 3 variants, and that's VXI, VXI-O and the ZXI variant. This is the ZXI variant, which in the Swift lineup is second to top, and this one costs 9,20,000 rupees ex-showroom. And the features that you get with this variant are actually quite enough. So you get a 7-inch touchscreen infotainment system, you do get LED headlamps, DRLs and even auto function. Another thing that you also get with the Swift CNG is a wireless charger, climate control, rear AC vents, and I think that's pretty much enough that you can have with a hatchback with CNG alternative. Of course, the top spec gets a bigger infotainment system, better looking 15-inch alloy wheels, dual tone roof, and even LED fog lamps. But when you have functionality as your prime concern, I think the ZXi variant is more than enough to suit your needs. Okay viewers, so the time lapse clearly indicates that we have been busy driving the Swift, and by now we have completed about 90 kilometers on the odometer, and these kilometers have been mostly in city, in stop and go traffic and less congested areas. But now it's time to take the Swift out on the highway to slightly more speeds, about 80 to 90 kilometers on the highway, of course within the prescribed speed limits. And by doing that, we'll see what is the overall change in performance, and even if there is a significant difference in the drop of the CNG fuel gauge. So let's do some highway loop. Approximately we are looking at about 100 or 100 plus kilometers on the highway to get an ideal condition and a proper mix of city and highway conditions in the real world. We kept driving and driving. The kilometers kept ticking by through the afternoon rush hour into the evening calm, and even as the day eventually gave way, the CNG fuel gauge steadily, almost agonizingly slowly, made its way towards the dreaded E mark. We pushed on, determined to extract every last bit of gaseous fuel from the tank. Okay, the moment of truth. We have finished refueling the Swift CNG and it's now back to its maximum capacity, and it's time to finally tell you the magic figure. Well, the Swift CNG traveled 214.4 kilometers on a full tank of CNG, and if you ask us how much CNG did it take to fill it back up in, well, the pump reading shows we filled in 7.25 kilos of CNG. Now let's do the math. 214.4 kilometers divided by 7.25 kilograms of CNG gives us a CNG mileage of 29.5 kilometers on a single kilogram of CNG. So there you have it, a full-blown no barred holes test of the Swift CNG. Well, if you found this video insightful, do give it a thumbs up. Would you like us to conduct similar range tests of other CNG variants? Do let us know in the comments below. Well, the rivals to the Swift CNG is the Neo CNG and the Tiago CNG. Both of them get a dual CNG kit compared to the single tank of the Swift. Do you want us to do a range test of those two cars as well? Let us know. Well, you were watching CarWale and we'll see you in the next one.